great to be with you guys. And now, Joe, Mulligan, it's just a great opportunity. Thank you so much. We thank you for the privilege for myself and Fiona to be able to share with you guys. And it's just so good to see every one of you on that screen. We know every one of you. Some of you probably a little bit more than the others, but we've had many we've crossed each other's path many times during our lifetime in London, and it's been a joy. We thank you so much, and we hope what we share with you today is going to really encourage and just inspire all of you, and to really just make us be stronger in our God, and also in our mission. It's just a tremendous thing because of the two commandments. The first commandment is to love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, strength. And the second one is to love our neighbor as ourselves, which is a great joy. Thank you so much. As you know, we are now in Scotland. It's a beautiful place. If you ever wanted to come to Scotland, you're welcome. Just drop us a line and come down. We're fortunate enough to be we have space. So, if it's just yourself and your spouse, just come down, and we can definitely help out. And the churches in Glasgow and Edinburgh would love to accommodate and have you for a period of time. Come on over. You will love it here. Well, truly, I think all of us are sitting, and this beautiful afternoon, we are going to look at couples and the mission focus. We are so blessed because we have our spouse. What a joy. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I know, I can speak for myself. I can let Fiona down so many times. It is so true. And we've been married since 1989. That makes it 32 years this year. I'll tell you what, there's been lots of ups and downs, but as one of the sisters, they just read a passage from Ecclesiastes 4. The cord of three is not easily broken, and that third cord, the Lord has really blessed us, and through also that having the disciples with us, we have been so inspired and encouraged, and the journey has been a pleasant one with our spouse. We were really thinking to do something different than Priscilla and Aquila, but we thought this couple are so exemplary that doesn't matter what denomination, what kind of a church you go to, it's whether it's Catholicism, Methodist, Baptist, whatever church you may look at, these couple are just a minor, not much mentioned about them, but what is mentioned is amazing. It's just such an impact this couple have had. So we're going to be reading together Acts 18, 1-4, 18 and 19 and 24 and 28. So this is a lesson from the lives of Aquila and Priscilla. So let's go to the next page. I think I said, great. Just before we kick off, we just want to introduce our family to you a little bit because they're a little bit older. Well, on the left-hand side, it's Nicholas and Elizabeth. This is quite a recent picture in Manchester. It's so lovely to be able to go down to Manchester and see them. And Elizabeth was with me. And there is Zach and Rebecca, as Mulligan just shared. They are leading the church in Cardiff. We are so blessed to have this amazing daughter, Rebecca. We love her so much, as well as obviously our two other children there, Nicholas and Elizabeth. They are a joy to us. But we are also very blessed to have Zach in our family, married to Rebecca. And it's just a tremendous joy and a blessing to have Zach. And wow, I mean, what can I say about Rose? Rose is just something else. Now, Rose is now 2 years old, 2.5 years old, 2.5 years old. This gorgeous little thing, full of life, and it's just really enjoying life, mom and dad. And as you know, we're looking forward to a third one. Second grandchild. Rebecca is pregnant, and I don't think this is a quiet news. Everyone knows, I think. She's pregnant and she's got a little boy on the way. So we would really appreciate your prayers that she has a wonderful little boy, and the family can really just enjoy. And I'm sure Rose is going to help mom with the responsibilities of being a mom. Yeah, so great. Well, actually, just before we go into the lesson, why don't we just pray together briefly? Let us pray briefly. Father, thank you so much. What a blessing it is, Lord, to be able to come before you as couples, Lord, to look at your word and also see what can we learn, Lord, so that we can be better, Lord, at how you've blessed us, to be the best we can be, Father, to honor you and to really preach the gospel together. We love you and pray in Jesus' blessed name. Amen. In Romans 15:4 says, for everything that was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through the endurance thought in the scriptures and the encouragement they provide, we might have hope. That's Romans 15:4. Obviously, when it was written to the disciples in Rome, referring to the Old Testament. But for us, 2,000 years later, we can take the entire thing to be a joy to us and learn. There's a picture of obviously a couple that are married, because obviously you see the ring on their finger, well, on her finger, and then you see the situations that they may encounter in life, which I must be honest, we've also been there. And sometimes if you're not careful, we can also sometimes visit that place. So that's life can be challenging at times. So yeah, so let's go to the next one. I did a research. This is actually fairly accurate. It's 2020. So it's not even a year old. About 18% of couples, I didn't put the figures up there, about 18%, they believe that they hardly speak to each other about having the same direction in life. They may have different goals. So that's basically 18% represents almost 1 in 5 couples. They don't talk about the direction of their lives. They just continue on. This is what causes basically heartaches in marriages, and eventually, a breakdown of the relationship. 41% suffer with financial heartaches, and it's just challenging because they don't have a tight rein of how they spend their money, what they spend it on. You can imagine if you're not speaking, your directions are not the same. There you are, you end up spending here and there, and then sometimes also it's all very quiet. No one knows what's going on until the bailiffs are at the door or the red letters are coming through. Communication seems to be one of the biggest ones. 65%, they don't know how to communicate. In the beginning of their marriage, there's a lot of grace, there's a lot of mercy, there's a lot of forgiveness, but there's a good communication as they are planning, because there is a plan. But once they are married, it seems like plan goes away, communication breaks down, and it's a challenge. I've just put that little slide on the side. That's a number 6.
No, it's a 9.
There's a 9. I said 6 and she said 9. Well, I say I'm not sure what it is now. So anyway, but that's just to give you a perspective. If where you're standing, if one standing is one side, is convinced it's a number 6.
You may not actually be able to read it, so I'll read it out to you. You've got these 2 people looking at this number on the floor, and the one says, just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side.
Yeah, and that is so true. Remember that, because it will help you when you want to communicate, just to have a bit more listening ear. And the funny thing is when communication breaks down, the intimacy goes, and it's what was meant to be there to consummate the relationship, bring us together, unify us, that breaks down slowly. So watch out for these things, because one thing leads to another. Build each other up, meet each other's needs, and talk to each other, spend time together. And what eventually happens, because there is a deeper problem, it starts in being a constant argument, and it's an argument after argument. Eventually there's just a complete breakdown, and it's just a sad situation. So avoid and see this pattern. These are kind of a pattern that they start one after another, and then people, at the end of it, they just give up. They simply, many give up. They just don't see a way out, and they, as a result, they give up. They don't even aim to ask help. And if they want to ask help, there's not really many people who are happy to get involved. I mean, I remember a situation. I wanted to get advice from my own relative. This is absolutely true, 100%. I was in trouble. I went to my relative, and my relative said to me, "Come, have a cup of tea here, but don't tell us your trouble. We have our own." And at least I knew where I was. But he was absolutely, he was like, "Don't tell me. I got my own troubles. I don't need yours." So you don't know, seeking help. Let's go to the next one. Now let us read Acts 18 as we consider the life of Aquila and Priscilla. After this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Paul went to see them. Paul went to see them, sorry. And because he was a tent maker, as they were, he stayed and worked with them. Every Sabbath he reasoned in the synagogue, trying to persuade Jews and Greeks.
Paul stayed on in Corinth, and for some time. There he left the brothers and sisters and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Before he sailed, he had his hair cut off at Cenchrea because of a vow he had taken. They arrived at Ephesus, where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila. He himself went into the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. 24. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately.
Excellent. Well done. Yeah, and I need to read that verse 27 there now, because I think I've got something on that. And in verse 27 and 28, it says, when Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. When he arrived, he was a great help to those who by the grace had believed, for he vigorously refuted the Jewish opponents in public debate, proving from scripture that Jesus was the Messiah. Yeah, let's go to the next page. Great. Now, we are introduced to Aquila and Priscilla. Apparently, these guys, they were Jews, and they were actually living in Rome, and this is around 52 AD. And Claudius, he is actually the Roman emperor. Aquila, by the way, means eagle. We can go to the next page actually as well. And Priscilla means ancient. Aquila and Priscilla actually are Greek names. This is not their Jewish names. But from what the scripture tells us, apparently they were Jews. And they went back. They had to leave Rome because there was, in 52 AD, Claudius was having a lot of uproars, unrest between the Jews and the Christians. And he wasn't bothered whose fault is this. Is it the Christians or is it the Jews? Just get rid of them. I don't want this hassle. I got an empire to run. I don't want to, what the Jews and the Christians are doing. Just expel them all. Send them back home. They can take care of them in those places. So that was basically the attitude they didn't want to have. So they were forced to leave. So it was their Greek name. However, when you read the scripture, it seems like that the Apostle Paul actually knew about them, because as the scripture says, he went to meet them. So there was some connection at some point. We don't know what. About this couple, Aquila and Priscilla, they are not mentioned many times in the Bible. They're only mentioned a handful of times, depending what translation you read, but it's about 4 times. 3 times in the book of Acts, and once in the book of Romans, and perhaps once somewhere else, but again, to do with the translation. But nevertheless, this couple were not a huge, if you like, very prominent people in the church. But the impact they had seems to be all powerful, because they were able to touch Apostle Paul's life to such an extent that he always seems to mention them. And also they had a serious impact on Apollos of Alexandria, because this couple were just amazing. They had this influence, even though they were not very prominent figures in the New Testament. So don't undermine your role in the kingdom. It may look to you, or it may look in the eyes of your surrounding, very little, but your impact as a couple could be beyond what you could ever imagine. So remember that. I think that's quite an important point. Let's go to the next point. Now, there are 5 characteristics we'd like you to consider about this couple. 5 characteristics. The first one is, it is working together. Working together. The scriptures tell us that this couple, they both were tent makers. They were actually working together. I don't know about you. During the COVID, and especially in the ministry, coming to Scotland, I used to work separately. My work, I had my own little company. I did my job. Fiona did her own job. She was a very high, very well paid, very high senior in midwifery. And she was basically her own boss, running her own team of women who were doing their work. But then I was doing my own work. I had my colleagues. But when we started working together in one room, I'll tell you what, it was not easy. Let's put it in the softest way. We were at each other's throats, or literally at times. We had to learn to work together next to each other. Because often she would say, honey, you're so loud. I can't talk to anyone on the thing. I was like, oh, I'm trying to speak very slow. But it just didn't work, We had to really work at it together. So it was a learning process. I'm glad to say now we are actually making coffees for each other, making teas with biscuit, and we are having a great time, but it's much better, more amicable. So that's really encouraging. But it wasn't easy. But this couple, they were able to work together. And they were working in Rome as tent makers, and here they come, and it looks like what they were doing in Rome, and they come to Syria and then to Corinth, they seem to be able to still enjoy working together. They didn't abandon their job or go on their own. No, they still continued. That tells me that they were happy and joyful in each other's company. That's a very powerful statement for two people, a man and a woman, be able to work together. And not only they worked together, but they also seems like they did the ministry together, which is powerful. It really is powerful. Uh, that's not a normal pattern in couples. It takes effort, it takes real focus, it takes a desire, it takes sacrifice. And a lot of couples, they can't handle that. But by God's grace in the kingdom, we can go beyond what we believe we can do. I think Fiona would like to share now.
Well, just a couple of things just on these 2 points that, they were working alongside each other, and they were helping Paul while they were doing that. And they were humble towards each other. Neither of these two were seeking the limelight. I think later we'll kind of discuss why Priscilla's name is often mentioned first. We'll come to that later. But on the point of sort of being united and working together, we've met a couple up here, actually. I don't want to be too, I won't mention their names or anything. They're not in the church, but since they've moved up to Scotland, this couple, the husband's going one way, the wife's going the other. And the fact the wife's even decided to resign her job up here in Scotland and commute and do a job in London again, which I'm thinking, wow, that's really going to rip this marriage apart. And I've warned her. I've said, this is not going to be great for your marriage. Unfortunately, they've not heeded this advice, and they're sort of going forward with that. But, within the kingdom, I'm pretty sure if they'd been in the church, they would have been asking lots of advice, getting help and advice and input about how they could make this work. And I do hope that, my prediction doesn't come to pass for this family. But, it's just made us realize just how important working together in work and in ministry really helps us keep, stay safe in our marriages and our relationships.
Yeah. I mean, the couple that Fiona is talking about, we know them. We could go to the next page. Because, the man, he wants to just buy houses so he can plan his retirement. And the wife wants to really excel in a completely different job. And so they're living not with the same focus at all together, and different, even complete careers, even different cities. Amazing how it can go. So, but the second character is growing together. And on the growing together, 2 things we really appreciate about Priscilla and Aquila is that they were, first of all, in growing, you've got to learn together. It comes across very strong. I mean, as you read the scriptures and as you see Apostle Paul being there, he would have been there for 18 months, give or take, just to be with them as he was reasoning and in the travels until he leaves them in Ephesus. And then he goes on, but he leaves them in Ephesus. But in that 18 months, can you imagine a couple being in the presence of Apostle Paul? They must have been eager to learn. I really think this couple, they must have learned from him, because you can actually be close to someone who's very knowledgeable, who's got godly convictions, and yet not learn. But from the way they seem to be able to handle the next few things that we're going to talk about, this couple were focused and they were able to learn. Not only in their growing together, they were eager to learn, but they were also eager to do things together, put it into practice. It's not good enough just to learn, but to practice. I mean, again, in Romans chapter 16, verse 3-5, this is some years later, obviously, down the line, we read that they are having a house church, family group, whatever you want to call, Bible talk, whatever it is, in their house some years later. I mean, these guys must have gone around a huge circle and they've come back and they are still working together in the ministry. So I suppose my question to you is, are you growing together? Are you eager to learn together? Are you actually, asking questions together, perhaps from each other? And then how do you plan to grow? There's a book we are reading right now, me and Fiona. We're reading this book. I don't know if you can see it. It says Lessons in Marriage. Lessons in Marriage. This is actually written by one of our brothers in the church, Remy Alaka. And we are reading this book. It's about how we can really become more united, how we can grow in our convictions together, how we can build each other. I'm learning so much about how much better I can communicate and how much better I can listen. It's amazing. I need that. And we need to add to ourselves. So growing together will mean learning and learning from those around you. Ask questions, continue adding to your understanding, and then aim to do things together, practice to do things together. Anything you'd like to share?
Well, on the point about, learning and doing together, I think we had a really great example in Corey and Angela Stuck, whom you will all many remember, were with us in the South Side for 5 years. I mean, we really learned from them as a couple. I think we'd been discipled by many different couples in previous years, and you learn something from each person you're around, don't you? But Angela and Corey really showed us how to work together in ministry and in life and in marriage. And I think, it really was from then, I guess, that we started really working together much more as a team. I think up until then, we probably were more kind of parallel lines, Rubik doing his men's ministry, me doing the women and so on. But, with Corey and Angela, we really learned how to reach out to families and neighbors together, and by studying the Bible together. Actually, then was probably when we started to do more Bible studies as couples. I mean, that was quite revolutionary, because up until then, we had the men were the men and the women were the women. But I mean, that was really great. They were able to use that skill of what we were learning and putting it into practice. So we would definitely want to encourage, if you can, learn from the people discipling you and actually work together as a team. And, we would often reach out to people as foursome. We would have a couple we were reaching out to, and we'd invite Corey and Angela to join us. And so we were learning from them on the job as well, as it were. And it was just a lot of fun.
Fantastic, absolutely. Corey and Angela came to the South Side in 2012, and I think God was really working on our lives then, preparing us. Next is serving together. I think we're getting there. Serving together. And I think just following up on that, we learned to actually make our home to be where we could be hospitable, where we could really share our efforts together, where people could come and see our interactions. And when you look at this couple, they were, it says, week after week they were at the synagogue on a Saturday, on a Sabbath, and seeing Apostle Paul reason. So they were watching and learning. I don't know if they were taking notes, but they certainly were really just consuming all this on learning. And when we had Corey and Angela, and others as well, but mainly Corey and Angela, because for 5 years they were with us, we just sat and listened how they asked questions, how they really drew people out, and how when they asked the right question and the good questions, instead of speaking too much of irrelevant things, we learned so much. And we learned how to really do this together, which was amazing. And we still need to learn, but we needed that. Just like here, this couple, they learned how to serve. And also, you can use your home, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a mansion. It doesn't have to be a castle. It doesn't have to be this, 4-bedroom detached house. It's not, none of that. People, they may be impressed by something like that for a moment, but what lasts longer is the human connection, is the way we speak to one another. I remember once going to a very prominent snooker player's house. I mean, this guy lived in the best place in Surrey, and I was invited, and I went there with my daughter, and I was at his house, and I was having a couple of frames of snooker with him at his table. I mean, it was a beautiful place in Surrey. I mean, the place probably was worth about then, my goodness, 15 years, 20 years, I don't can't remember how far, at least maybe 3-4 million. And then one of his children came and he had an interaction with his child. And I can't tell you how the language was. From the child to the father, it was, I felt for the father. I don't know what I should have felt, but I felt, my goodness, this is bad. And then there was the mother, there was the other kids. I took a note of that. I remember everything else, but that interaction of that child and the father just stayed in my head. And you know what happened eventually? That family disintegrated, completely disintegrated. And the guy now, he's divorced. He sees his kids every now and then, but we are so blessed because we can serve with each other. We can, and people notice that. When you do that, it is amazing. I think the most important point of this is, I want to say, is make most of the opportunity working together. Fiona would like to share something.
So we've always made our home a place where we share meals with people. And I mean, I can hand on heart say, I mean, obviously here in Scotland, we're still working at it because, lockdown hasn't allowed us to do that all of the time we've been here. But I mean, certainly for the South Side, we had all of the ministry couples, all of the Bible talk leaders and various other people through our home, each year. And we had singles over, we had all sorts of people. We always made sure that our home was a place that people would, could come and enjoy a meal for us. And so obviously with the lockdown, we had a different problem on our hands. How were we going to continue to do that? So we came up with Zoom dates, and I'm sure, many of you have done that as well. Yeah. But how we did it was, I'd invite a couple and then I would set the menu, and then the sister or the brother on the other side would cook the menu that I'd set. So we'd end up eating the same food in our own homes and having a Zoom date. And actually, since we've moved up to Scotland, we've been able to do some double dates with people in London. So we've introduced people in Glasgow to people in London. And I think actually that's still a way you can do a date even now. Okay, it's much better to be face to face, but all this Zoom meetings has enabled us to meet people from other places, and you can still have Zoom dates. I know that some of your ministry is a bit further flung than Northwest London, so the Milton Keynes crowd, you still have lots of fun from your homes with people, we can join sometimes, or Birmingham or what have you. So really make the most of the new technology that's come our way.
Yeah, great. Bottom line is, when you sit down together, you can come up with ideas, you can come up with plans, you can talk to other couples, and it's amazing. Suddenly there's a huge a huge highway opening to your eyes, and then it's just a matter of trying to do it. So yeah, Priscilla and Aquila, they learned to serve together, whether they were in Rome. For some reason, sounds like Apostle Paul had heard about this couple. Maybe somebody mentioned something to him on his way. Go and see these people. They are a great couple. Maybe that was just the beginning of Paul's interaction. But whether they were in Rome, or if they were in Corinth, or they were in Ephesus, it seems like these people were happy to serve together. The circumstances didn't rule the situations, but they were able to overcome the circumstances with ideas. Think, how can we do that? Let's go to the next. The next characteristics is building together. I think that's fine. It's coming. Yeah, great. Building together. I love this section of the talk a little bit more than all the others. I think they're all valuable. But they were not named leaders. Do you notice they're not? I don't know if they were deacons, they were elders, they were preachers. I mean, if he was a preacher, Aquila, I don't know about that. I have no idea. So they just did what they knew would build the kingdom. That's all they were focused on. And we see there, obviously, their incredible ability that they were able to build a kingdom by just going to the marketplace and seeing this guy, Apollos of Alexandria, when he was speaking, and they had this clarity of mind or this ability in their spirit not to jump the gun. They invite the guy to their home. And then the next thing is they start sharing the gospel with the guy. And the passage says Apollos of Alexandria, he was a learned man, but he only knew the baptism of John the Baptist. And there he is, they take this time, they bring him home, hospitable, they're building the kingdom. I mean, Apollos of Alexandria, he's a very well-known guy in literature. It's a lot written about him. He became a prominent man in the Corinth church. He had influences, and yet this couple were instrumental. How they built the kingdom through him. God used this couple. It's amazing. Absolutely, it's incredible. And I appreciate that. They were with Apostle Paul. I mean, Apostle Paul talks about them in Acts chapter 16. He says they risked their lives for him. So they were not just building with one guy, but they had a huge influence on Apostle Paul. When Apostle Paul, I mean, he writes in 1 Corinthians, when he came trembling, not with eloquent words. He would have needed encouragement. He would have needed support. There would have been needed someone say, bro, we are with you. We know the Lord is going to bless you. Keep on speaking the word. If you need a place of refuge, we are right here. Don't worry. The Lord is going to work through us. He's going to provide what you need. That would have been an amazing encouragement to Apostle Paul. And Apostle Paul went on to do so much. It's all these little encouragements that really built the kingdom. It's not the massive, massive, massive work. It's the small things. I often say to my friends, it takes raindrops to fill the sea. But it does. It takes those little drops of the sea. So let us be builders of the kingdom together. Would you like to share anything?
Not particularly.
All right. Yeah. Now ask yourself this question. How can we excel? How can we grow? In what way to build the kingdom? What can we do? If it is as a couple, as we are on the mission field, are we good at serving? Let us serve. Are we good at keep encouraging our brothers and sisters, those who are mentoring us and those who we mentor? We are all connected to each other. Is it giving? God blesses us financially. Let us give, and let's give generously. Let's give to build the kingdom. But let's work together to really bring the kingdom, to build together as a couple. What a joy. Let us be, how can we be mission focused? What can we do? How can we really excel in these areas? And lastly, this couple, they're always remembered together. Wow, what a joy, really. I mean, I hope and I pray that anytime people say Rubik, and there will be a Rubik and Fiona. There'll be a, Mulligan and Joe. And you can, Carlos and Charlotte, Dameola and Tinuke, Christian and Temi, and so on and on and on and on. Because the two become one. And that is just so wonderful. Always together. Yeah,
as I said earlier, Aquila and Priscilla and Aquila are often always mentioned together, and quite often her name is mentioned first. And I know we can get quite sensitive about, is it the man leading, was the woman? It may be in some areas Priscilla was the sharper of the two, which is why her name was mentioned first. but you never get the impression that she was leading this marriage or leading in the discipleship. I'm sure Aquila was there doing his level best to lead the marriage, to lead the relationship. And I'm sure he was very powerful in helping Apollos to become the man he was. So just check it out there in case anyone's wondering why Priscilla's always mentioned first. I'm sure they both had their strengths and they really played to each of them.
Yeah, I appreciate that, honey. You're saying, I mean, the truth is there are many areas in our lives. Fiona is so well educated. I mean, she's got 3 degrees, masters. My goodness, I mean, so much more. French speaking, all kinds. Amazing background. You know, my abilities, considering worldly ways, we're not compatible, and yet in God's eyes, I still lead the marriage, and she is so supportive with all that ability. But I lead it. She will bring that, and I will harness it together, and we present it, and that is how it is in the kingdom. And this couple, they don't seem to be in a rivalry. Rivalry. That's the kind they say. Yeah, rivalry. But they seem to complement each other, and he is certainly leading, and yet she doesn't seem to be unhappy. He doesn't seem to be overbearing, and it's a joy for them to be able to be remembered together. And truly, the two had become one. They had such an impact as a couple, with no recognition given to them as such, no titles, and yet they are remembered. The two shall become one. So these are the characteristics, just to kind of go over them very quickly. They were growing together, they were serving together, they were building together, and they were working together, and they are remembered together. Now, what we'd like to share a little bit with you is being mission focused is actually an amazing and joyful journey. There is so much joy attached to this. It's not about hard graft. It's about faithful living and enjoying each other's company, each other's being together, and really in humility, just doing God's work and enjoying the favor of all the people that you come in contact with. It's a blessing, to have your spouse and to have this mission that you could work together and have this focus. I'd like Fiona to share some of the people that we have met through this beautiful journey, that we are so we are so blessed. We feel like we've been the ones who've been blessed because of this mission.
So some of you may already have heard Rubik share in other meetings about Wordsworth and Sheila Price. Wordsworth Price is listed as one of the top 100 scientists in the UK. He was an 89-year-old gentleman that Rubik met on the way to work one day. It's a bit of a long story, so I won't go through it, but he became a disciple at the age of 89 and was baptized during the lockdown. And what an amazing man, so humble. I mean, I met him 2 or 3 times in the course of his studying the Bible. A more humble scientific person I don't think you're likely to meet. And he decided that he needed God, and he was truly baptized. Amazing. And he died about 2 months after he was baptized. But we also met his wife. Now, she wasn't quite so open, but that didn't stop us from having them over for a meal. And I think she really appreciated the effort that Rubik was making with her husband. And God willing, one day she'll remember that she too needs God. And then again, I'm not claiming that I met Katrina. In fact, Mandy Brown down in the south, she was the one that was really instrumental in helping Katrina to become a disciple. But as we realized Katrina was married, me and Rubik got involved with the 2 of them together with her husband Tarek. Amazing couple down on Brighton. They live together there on Brighton with their 6 children. fantastic couple, and we've been spending many days and evenings, and we've had wonderful days with them down on the south coast, just sharing our lives and encouraging him. He's a very talented man, and we're hoping that one day he will make his choice to serve God too, but you know, that's still work in progress. But I think that really counts something, and they really value us as friends, you know, and they ring us up and ask for advice, even though, you know, he is not a disciple at this point. Marcelo is our neighbor down in London. He was over the fence. Rubik met him. How did you meet him?
My fence broke. I think that.
That's right. The back fence broke down. And Marcelo was working as a home, you know, a live-in home help for an old couple. And he helped Rubik fix the fence. And then one thing led to another. And Rubik invited along to a Bible discussion, I think before lockdown. And then after that, it was all online. And he was baptized again during lockdown. And then we've just shared loads of meals. I mean, he's passed meals to us. I've passed meals to him. And most Sundays, you know, I'd say, are you hungry? And he'd say yes. And then I'd hand him the meal, you know, so I'd just cook an extra portion. And he was such a fired up guy, and really, you know, he would join in our discussions and just be so excited. And he's a married man himself. He's Brazilian, you know, he's got family abroad and so on. So he was a fun fellow. And then a really long-standing friend of ours called Caroline. She's been coming along to our group for the longest time. We've studied with her. She's not quite ready to jump in yet to the waters of baptism, but you know, that hasn't stopped Caroline from being completely giving. She always comes with food, you know, she's always ready to open her house to our group down in London, you know. And I think this was the teamwork. To be honest, I actually probably didn't meet any of these people myself, but I've worked hard with Rubik to bring them through and to where they're at now. So, well, you know, with God's help, I've done that. So I fed them, you know, I've been shouldered to cry on occasionally, and it's just been absolutely fun. And there was another single fellow as well that I fed many times as he was studying the Bible with the brothers. So it is just about teamwork, and it has been fun.
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. And you know what? People, the others, they really caught the fire, because very quickly in our ministry, we had we had a wonderful couple with us, a young Korean couple, and they began to imitate what we were doing, and they connected with another Korean couple, and that Korean couple was baptized. And now we are in Scotland. We were the closest couple to them, but now they've got another close couple to them that speak the same language as well. So they are so excited about that, which is incredible. You know, this is the journey is so joyful. Then we had somebody else in another ministry that we were kind of looking over. They also, together as a couple, they connected with another young man. Two couples get involved in somebody else's life, and another young man was baptized. It's amazing because people loved these connections, having time together. We have a great saying in the Middle East. We say, those who eat together stay together. So we're trying to feed people as we feed scriptures. So just what a blessing as a couple you could do that. Now we got a few practicals that we think could be helpful. And we are glad to say that our kids have learned quite a bit of this as well, which is such an inspiration. Just a few practicals. Praying and planning. Praying and planning with your spouse is an important part of this journey. Unless two decide to walk together, you know, that's just not going to happen. You have to decide, we're going to walk this journey together. Plan, pray, and then walk together. Do you want to share about our plan, how we went about trying to...
Well, I remember we got together as a family, we sat down in the lounge. We really wanted everyone to be involved in the mission. And by the way, we always will include our children, age appropriately, obviously, with the meals that we have. They may not stay for the whole conversation afterwards, but we will always include them in the meal because it's good learning for our children to be able to sit around adults and engage with visitors. So that was really helpful. And even now, Lizzie will join in with us if we're having people over, and we have at last started having people over again. But I remember we sat down and we had a plan about how we wanted to reach out, and we just had a bit of a chat about how we might do that and making sure the kids were on board. It's important that children understand what the plan is, because as our kids get older, you know, it's fine when they're young, they do what we tell them, but as they get older, they start to tell us what they do and don't want to do. So it's always wise to have a conversation with them. So that was helpful.
Yeah, great. And if you're struggling how to plan, how to go about things, ask for help, which is a great blessing in the kingdom. I mean, you know, if any one of these couples, if you need some help, I'm sure if you ask Mulligan and Joe, we want to do something like this, who do you think could help us in Northwest or in the church? They'll guide you. You know, have a chat with this couple or that couple, or, you know, plan with, they've gone through this journey, they've done that. You'll get help, and then you can be empowered. The second is reflecting and restoring. You know, often we would sit down after our meals with couples. By the way, our plan was that we would meet with one couple every month minimum that we'd be reaching out to, or possibly sometimes once every 3 weeks. But it was minimum once a month. We will have a couple in our house that we will either have with us only, or if we thought it was appropriate, we'll have another couple join us, just to build relationship. Like with the Korean couple, we invite them, we had the other Korean couple, so that we could help them to kind of move forward on that. And then in the evening, we'll sit down and reflect what things we did was good and helpful, and what wasn't. And we were persistent on this. We did this about 1.5 years. We met with a lot of couples. Not many were open, but you know what? We had a great time, built friendships, and we ate good food, and they enjoyed it, and they had to make a choice, and that was fine. But reflect and restore. Being eager to learn, ask questions. You know, one of the most simple things Jesus ever said: ask, it will be given to you; seek, you will find; knock, and the door will be open. Ask questions, don't shy away. We didn't know how to actually study the Bible with people.
As couples, you mean?
Yeah, as couples. That's right. We didn't know how to study. I mean, you know, some of us have been around the block many years. I can sit down with a 16-year-old and maybe a 20-year-old with a couple of brothers and study the Bible. But when you come to a married guy, he's got a business to run, he's been around the block. He's not someone, you know, he's going to get baptized in 2 weeks. They need friendship, they need relationship, they need conversations, they need times to connect, because they've been scarred so much more. You know, they've been touched so much more, they've experienced so much more. You got to undo these things. I mean, for us to baptize that, you know, with Tarek and Petrina, for the wives to get baptized, it was a 4 months, 5 months journey, and so many meals. We went to Brighton, they came up to us, so many Zoom conversations. It wasn't quick, it fixed, you know, it took time. With Wordsworth and Sheila, it was a good 4 months, because the guy had so many things to talk through, and it was health-wise, he needed that time. So be eager, seek advice, get help, be persistent, don't give up. If something doesn't work, reflect, look at it. Sometimes you just got to be faithful. You know, we just got to be patiently. I think it talks about the, you know, in 2 Timothy 2, it talks about the farmer, you know, spreading the seed, waiting patiently for the crop to come. God has promised, you know, God will make things grow, not in our time, but in his own time.
Back to this one. Make this point.
Yeah. Maybe you could share that, honey, if you like.
Okay, I just wanted to chip in a little bit around the seeking guidance. I think what isn't the easiest thing to do, but is a really good thing to do as a couple, is when you're in your discipling times, is actually to ask the couple that you're with, what do you see in us? You know, that's quite a vulnerable question to ask, because you need to also be willing to listen to the answer. you know, what could be done differently? What do we need to do differently to be more effective? And that could be just something in your personal relationship, but also in how do I get these practical difficulties sorted so that we can be more effective as a couple, and just get some ideas. It may be you have a really packed schedule because of your working life. You're going in opposite directions. You know, it's no longer working from home. And actually, even working from home, you can be really tied to the desk for hours on end. So it's just really, really important that you're willing to ask for help from others in terms of what they can see that you could do differently to be more effective.
Excellent idea. I think that's a great point. We just had Chris and Teresa Broom with us. As some of you know, it was such a great time they came over, they stayed with us. We simply asked them the question, you've been with us for about 3 days. What do you think we could do better? Just tell us, we give you just, blank piece of paper. Just tell us what you think we could do better. And that is so helpful, and they were so kind. And they said to us, you don't need anything. No, I'm kidding. That's not what they said. No, they gave us some good input. It was really helpful, because we have blind sides. Something else I was so be open and be eager to learn. God will bless humility. The other thing I was going to mention is this. I used to play snooker in the league. And I used to play every Thursday night. I would go Thursday night from 7 o'clock until about 10 o'clock. And my desire was like, I'll go there and reach out to some people and through snooker. But to be honest with you, I found that I was able to have conversations, but it didn't do a lot of good, because the guys who came to play snooker, they just wanted to play snooker. They didn't want to have any conversation about anything else. So they were, so I decided that it's really not the best use of my time. Maybe, some of us, we need to consider, how do we spend our time? Because the more you spend time together and plan things together, the more focused you are, the better harvest you will get. Because that does affect, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we need an amount of time to rest, sometime, for our spouse, sometimes for our kids. So don't pack your weeks with lots of things and then expect to be, focused in your mission. That just doesn't work. There is a certain amount of time. So plan your days. Brothers, sisters, look at your times. What is really important? What is, what I can do every now and then, but not all the time. Consider those things. And the other thing I was going to also encourage you with is this. Keep yourselves fresh as couples. Something me and Fiona did quite often. We would take a break. I would take her, for a night away, 2 nights away, and have some time for each other. Go away. I mean, we went to a really nice place, not too far, for a Saturday night. We left Saturday morning, went to this beautiful place, Ripley in Surrey. Some of you may know Ripley, by the M25. And there's a lovely place called Albert Hotel or something. And we would stay there the night, have a nice meal, and then in the morning we would be able to get up, have a good wash, and get ready and go to church still. But we had a night away together, and that was refreshing for us. So make sure that you continue to build your marriages, as well as your focus on the mission, because you can't just give and not have that time for yourselves to recruit yourselves. Have that time with each other. Enjoy each other's company. We are so blessed to be in the kingdom. And I think Priscilla and Nicola are a great example. So that's all I've got to say, honey. Anything?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I think we've said it all, and we've been talking for an hour now. So we'd like to leave that with you, and give you some opportunity to reflect on how it might apply. You might apply this to your lives.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the privilege and the honor to be able to share with you.